Washington Irving is one of America's most celebrated and best-selling authors of American Romanticism, best known for his Gothic, fantasy, satire, and historical fiction short stories. He is also known to commonly publish darker and more complex themes that consisted of historical transformation and personal dislocation. Due to his success, he became the first American author to be able to financially support himself solely through his writing. Washington Irving was born on April 3, 1783, in New York City, just a few months after the Revolutionary War. He was the youngest of 11 children of Scottish immigrant William Irving Sr. and English immigrant Sarah Saunders Irving, who married in 1761 and settled in New York in 1763. Washington Irving was named after the first United States President and founding father George Washington, from whom he would publish a 5-volume biography, which would be known as one of his greatest literary accomplishments that was written during his final years. Irving looked up to his older brothers, who enjoyed writing poetry and essays. Their aspiration inspired him to write a series of satirical essays based on theater and New York society under the Jonathan Old style. In 1802 to 1803, Irving had 9 of his essays published in his brother's newspaper, The Morning Chronicle. Irving studied law with former New York Attorney General Josiah Hoffman after his return from Europe in 1806, after being sent away to tour Europe abroad in 1804 by his brothers after showing signs of tuberculosis. He eventually passed the bar exam soon afterward. However, law wasn't a subject he was generally passionate about. Irving primarily studied law because it was expected of him by his family. In 1809, Irving was engaged to his only true love, Matilda Hoffman, the daughter of Josiah Hoffman, who suddenly died of tuberculosis at age 17. Her death left him extremely heartbroken, and he grieved her for the remainder of his life and never married. However, this allowed him to step away from practicing law and focus on writing, which was his true passion. Irving moved to Europe in 1815, where he would live for the next 17 years. He worked in Liverpool alongside his brother Peter as an importer of English hardware, until the passing of their mother, Sarah Saunders, who died in New York in 1818. In 1818, he met Scottish poet and novelist Sir Walter Scott, who directed Irving's interest in the wealth of unused literary material in Gothic folktales, which he later used as sources to create his Gothic short stories Rip Van Winkle and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow takes place in an early Dutch settlement village of Tarrytown, New York, which is described as a bewitched town whose residents are familiar with its local tales, haunted spots, and twilight superstitions. One of the most well-known tales is the Headless Horseman, who was once a Haitian soldier who fought in the Revolutionary War, who tragically met his end when decapitated by a cannonball. It is believed that the horseman haunts the grounds of Tarrytown seeking his head. The story's protagonist, Ichabod Crane, is an outsider who comes to Tarrytown to work as a local school and music teacher who attempts to romantically pursue Katrina Van Tassel, the daughter of a wealthy man, who is also being pursued by the town favorite, Abraham Van Brunt, also known as Bran Bones. It is revealed that although Ichabod enjoys stories of the supernatural, he is easily frightened by the town's tales, especially that of the Headless Horseman. One night, while wandering alone, Ichabod runs into the Headless Horseman, who eventually chases him deep into the woods. The next morning, the townspeople discover Ichabod's horse and hat, along with a shattered pumpkin head, only Ichabod is nowhere to be found. However, the townspeople believe that Ichabod was dragged to hell by the Headless Horseman, or that he simply left to start fresh somewhere else. Another possibility is that perhaps Abraham scared Ichabod away by playing a practical joke on him while dressed as the Headless Horseman himself. That was a clip from Tim Burton's Gothic 1999 horror Sleepy Hollow, starring Johnny Depp as Ichabod Crane, who is seen encountering the Headless Horseman, a folklore figure who haunts the grounds of Sleepy Hollow and appears on a black horse while holding a flaming pumpkin head in his hand in place of his head. This short story is recognized as one of Irving's most popular works, especially around the time of the Halloween season. This short story's popularity has led to various film adaptations, such as The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and The Smurfs, The Legend of Smurfy Hollow. Some historical facts about the text is that the story takes place 15 years after the Revolutionary War. The town known as Tarrytown, or in this case, Sleepy Hollow, is based on a real Dutch settlement in which Washington Irving actually resided in during his final years. Lastly, the Headless Horseman is inspired by German folklore, The Wild Huntsman, which is based off a soldier who was decapitated during the Battle of the White Plains during the Revolutionary War in October 1776. Washington Irving's objective throughout the story is to manipulate the audience's thoughts and beliefs by merging folklore with reality, building suspense within the story's setting and characters as the story progresses up until the protagonist's disappearance, allowing the reader to interpret the story's ending for themselves by questioning whether or not the superstitious elements in the story are simply considered psychological. Something different from Irving's Gothic short story, apart from others, is that it includes a satirical protagonist who, apart from being a highly ambitious, career-driven character, is easily frightened by the sound of water, strange noises, and even by the sound of his own footsteps due to psychological superstition, despite his self-proclaimed intelligence. This is an important detail for the audience to interpret as to whether or not Ichabod truly encountered the Headless Horseman. Apart from the story's protagonist, Irving illustrates how the town's local tales overshadow the townspeople's thoughts. For instance, Tarrytown is introduced as a place with a drowsy, dreamy-like influence that seems to hang over the land and pervades the very atmosphere, which allows the audience to imagine the town's dark and mysterious village-like setting. It is also explained that the town is believed to have been bewitched by a German doctor and many other individuals with ties to the supernatural, such as witches, wizards, tribe members, etc. To continue, the narrator explains how this belief has greatly impacted the town by stating that the place still continues under the sway of some witching power that holds a spell over the minds of the people. They are given to all kinds of marvelous beliefs, have trances and visions, and see strange sights and hear music and voices in the air. This text highlights how the town's tales have impacted the townspeople by corrupting their minds with fear and anxiety, which has resulted in them in living in an eternal state of paranoia, whether or not they truly believe in the town's local tales of the supernatural. Another important part of the text that questions as to whether or not the local town tales and Ichabod's encounter of the horsemen are true is towards the end of the story after Ichabod's disappearance. It is stated the old country wives, however, who are the best judges of these matters, maintain to this day that Ichabod was spirited away by supernatural means, and it is a favorite story often told about the neighborhood round the winter evening fire. This illustrates that the country wives are primarily the ones responsible for spreading around the town's local tales. The country wives, being considered the best judges, evidently labels them as the town's most trusted individuals who are believed to know everything about any tragic event that occurs. Aside from the tale of Ichabod Crane's disappearance being just another campfire story, it will also eventually overshadow his once respected reputation and be carried on as another one of the town's local tales to be shared with many others for years to come. Anyone who learns the name of Ichabod Crane will be simply destined to remember his story as just another legend of Sleepy Hollow. Overall, what Irving's short story has to offer for the reader is morbid curiosity, which allows them to dive deep into the character's psychological impact from the supernatural elements involved within the story, by taking on fictional emotions projected onto them and need to develop further questions and answers to draw an ultimate conclusion that best suits their comfort of closure.